Joe, Tommy Tuberville is in the news this week as we've continued, and I would assume that he's going to be on the presidential commission along with Nick Saban. But Tommy Tuberville, the senator, former head coach of the Auburn Tigers and Texas Tech Red Raiders, came out and took a little bit of a shot at the University of Texas about NIL and the collective and the portal. Joe, I'll just read off what he said here in quotes so people have the context here. He said that they have been elevated because of their collective. They've been elevated because they've been able to spend money, and they're just doing what everybody else is doing, but it's helped them come back because of the money that they were able to spend. Joe, what is he wrong in saying there? I do think a lot of people are like trying to defend Texas, but I mean, he does say in there, hey, I mean, they're doing what everybody else has the ability to do. They just have more money than you.
Well, I think part of what his argument is and why he took aim at Texas is, and this is going to happen until this commission actually meets, until there's actually a resolution and changes that come out of it. There's going to be a lot of talking. There's going to be a lot of like quotes like this. His aim was at the fact that there is an imbalance, which nobody's going to argue that there isn't. And him pointing out that a program like Texas has so much more resources that they were able to pull themselves from consistent mediocrity. The whole 2000s, 2010, since their last national championship, they have been incredibly mediocre in the Big 12. And now that NIL is a thing, you've got Lamborghinis on recruiting visits, and you're able to pull all the top kids in Texas to stay in the state, which is how Texas should be. But I think that this is him starting this conversation of NIL shouldn't just be about who pays the most money. I don't particularly agree with that, but his whole statement is Texas is the firmest example about how wherever the money can be found is always going to funnel to these teams like this, and they're always going to have a significant advantage if NIL continues the way that it is.
I hate the equality take.
I do too.
Because it's number one, it's never been equal. It's never going to – Joe, there's no regulations – that you're going to put on a team like Texas, Ohio State, Georgia, Bama, Notre Dame, LSU, to where they're not going to have more money than you. A&M, I mean, I left them out. They're going to have more money than you. So you keep talking about equality. You keep talking about all this. We want things to be more on a more even playing field. Joe, I can make the argument that the game is, from on the field standpoint, more of an even playing field than it's ever been. More than it's ever been. Teams can't hoard 5 stars anymore. Either they're going to play or they're gone.
Right. That's why I'm like completely against this whole take that he has. The whole quote was that you're going to eliminate 90% of the schools because they don't have the money. I completely reject that. I think that now we're seeing that because there's able to be movement of guys that aren't getting onto the field, they're able to go and contribute elsewhere. You're able to see guys that don't pan out go maybe even down to the G5 level, get an opportunity to play, do some great things for themselves. Some boost their draft stock. Some end up returning back to the Power 4 level. Catalon, Jalen Catalon, the safety from UNLV, who was previously a Texas player, Missouri. Arkansas player. Now he's back at Missouri. He's an example of that. If guys do well for themselves, they bounce back and forth. So I don't get what this kind of paints into, Blake, the whole issue that we have, particularly me, with government involvement with trying to, quote, fix college athletics. Because
he should know better.
Right, he should know better, but I don't think that he has a good feel for what he's talking about. Like, it really doesn't feel like he's
any of them.
No, that's my problem with all this.
But no, I mean, coaches don't even know. I mean, hell, we brought up Saban, and we brought in Sankey, and we brought up Petiti. The whole argument there is none of them know what to do. It's not just Tubberville. At least I'll give him this. About 6 months ago, and you can go look this up, because you and I actually talked about this. At least he put his foot down and said that he would have pay structures to where upperclassmen make more money, which I don't agree with that, but okay. But he also said that you can't transfer for 2 years and you sign 2-year contracts.
I would argue – No, finish what you're saying. Go ahead, finish what you're saying.
All I'm going to say here is, all I would say is at least he took a stand. I don't agree with the stand. I don't agree with it at all. But there does come a point in time where at least somebody put their foot down. And here's the thing, though, about his Texas take. He's not wrong. He's not wrong in the sense that they've been able to spend a shitload of money to get where they are. Joe, was reported by On3 and The Athletic that Texas's roster, with the House case being settled plus NIL and collective, that they're going to have a $40 million roster. He said another thing. You brought the 90% thing there, too. 90% of schools won't be able to survive. The federal court system and then the Supreme Court said all of this, if this happened, and they dictated in another country what college kids were going through when schools were getting paid and they weren't off of TV revenue. Brett Kavanaugh called it slavery. Literally, that was the word that he used. And we brought that up and we've talked about that. Joe, everything was fine until the players had to start getting paid and those schools had to start writing checks. So they're trying to dictate something that, quite honestly, the federal government, if we're being honest to this exact point, has already made a stance. Joe, the House settlement case is a stance, right? Like the transfer portal ruling is a stance. The NIL, because of a damn video game, is a stance. Joe, what other regulation do you need? Now, I do believe there should be some collective bargaining and some of those things, but all I'm saying is you're trying to say that you would do X, Y, and Z. Well, you haven't brought a bill up. You're calling out Texas for doing everything that everybody else could do, but you have not brought one bill to the Senate to try to regulate this. So he can keep opening his mouth too, but nobody is taking action. At least he made some form of a stand and said what he would do, though.
But my only problem is that I feel like Tubberville and some others that are some other politicians and just others that have been trying to help push this sport forward and make changes to it. It feels kind of disingenuous to make a claim like this and to kind of like say, he said he has nothing against Texas, but he's singling them out. He's completely singling them out.
Pause. I don't know if he's necessarily calling out Texas more than he's calling out Ted Cruz.
Why do you think he's calling out Ted Cruz? I don't know if I agree
because
with that.
Ted, in multiple times when he could have put legislation through the Senate, he refused. And he is in the state of Texas, and we got the man in the coach's suite. I think that this – listen, all I'm saying is sometimes you take shots at universities and you take shots without calling somebody's name out. But, Joe, they've had opportunities to come down, and they didn't do it. Did you see Ross Dillinger's tweet this week in reference to Judge Claudia Wilkins saying that wasn't this on the Senate floor like a year and a half ago and nobody answered the question? She asked the question. She literally everything the NCAA and the attorneys for the House case read out per Ross Dillinger's tweet. The Judge Claudia Wilkins came out and basically, I'm paraphrasing this part, but it is the essential part of wasn't this on the Senate floor? So I do think it was more of a shot, not just to Texas, but that Ted Cruz didn't pass what needed to be passed. I'm probably playing in the weeds, but we all know how politics are run.
I don't think it was direct to Texas. I think this was more direct to schools that are currently dominating in NIL at the current moment and are dominating. It is all the same programs that are winning at the top. It's Ohio State. It's now Notre Dame is back on the mix. LSU, Alabama, Georgia, USC, who's a big brand, is starting to do really well in recruiting again now that there's more of a financial commitment. My biggest issue, to kind of return to what I was saying at the beginning, is just the way that he is framing this.
I agree.
And the way that he is trying to frame that ultimately, just because these programs are putting money towards their teams, it's some sort of significant. Like I'm trying to focus on Blake, that if he is supposed to be a decision maker that is supposed to help the sport get better, why is he so focused on equality amongst the teams? I don't think that that's the biggest issue that needs to be resolved.
No, but here's the thing, Joe. I don't mean this in a wrong way. You just listed off 7 teams. Those 7 teams were at the top before NIL was even a thing. I mean, we're going to talk about Urban Meyer here in just a moment in the Big Ten versus the SEC. Six teams in the SEC have won national titles in the last 25 years. 6. Guess how many in the Big Ten?
It's 2, right? Yeah, it's 2.
Well, 3 if you want to count USC. I guess you can count USC, but even though they got them stripped, I mean, I'll throw USC in there. I mean, hell yeah, throw USC in there. So 3. You're not even halfway there. So nevertheless, it's always been like that.
Right.
Like, what are you trying? That's what goes to the point. So back to the main point of what you're talking about. That's how I let it off. So it doesn't matter the situation. The top dogs are going to be the top dogs. They always been the top dogs. They'll always be the top dogs. And here's the thing I want to throw out there. Okay. I listened to somebody this week, and he asked me not to really use his name for AYS stuff, so I'm not going to do it. He goes, Blake, you do realize that I make well over $1 million a year, and nobody said anything to me about making the money. And by the way, he had a massive buyout in his previous stop. And he's like, bro, I got paid $3 million to not walk. I got paid $3 million not to coach. And so what are we exactly worried about? Like, we have to get structure, and that's fine. But it's adults making decisions for young adults who, quite frankly, and I'm going to say this, I don't know if the players have a voice.
Well, and this is something that we've talked about, is that, like, we need, and I forget which segment that we brought this up in, we need to have a CBA. Like, this is like the biggest thing that's not focused on enough at the current moment, is that there is no collective bargaining agreement and there is no union for the players to speak into. Like that, there's no centralized voice that is representing the players at the current moment, even during the House case.
None.
And to round out, like, where I keep having issue with Tubberville, is he's supposed to be a leader in this. He's supposed to be the guy in politics that's supposed to have the actual background in sports as a coach, as a former coach. And he's speaking on and focused on what feels like the wrong things. The issues with NIL are not that specific teams are the ones that are dominating in the field and are the ones that are consistently producing the most competitive rosters and are now surging and are going to be the top teams for the next however many years. The bigger issue are the specific regulations in protecting the athletes. That has always been my biggest problem when we have these conversations. We spend so much time talking about, well, Texas and Alabama and such teams have all this money to spend, and Bowling Green's not going to be able to ever get anywhere near them. That's never been a realistic premise. The realistic focus needs to be on, okay, there are kids out there that have had, there's plenty of horror stories. We all remember not that long ago where there was that one NIL agent who was bragging about the fact that he was taking like over 20% on NIL deals from kids, and his logic behind explaining it was completely nonsensical. We need to focus on the predatory actions that are occurring where kids are getting money taken away from them because they don't know what is a realistic and fair contract for them to sign for how they're supposed to do business. Like there is just so many other guardrails that I think I need to be focused on rather than trying to increase parity amongst the sport. Politicians shouldn't give a shit about that.
Parity won't be parity. There'll never be parity.
Never be. There's
20 teams. Here's the truth. The last point before we get to the break here. There are 20 teams that can win a national title every year. Only 20. And then you weed yourself out throughout the regular season. And to this, I don't even think you get to 12. Joe, I don't know if you get to 6. Like, I don't think that there were 6 teams last year after even with Georgia losing Carson Beck, which you and I probably were wrong about Gunnar Stockton, if we're being honest. But there were maybe 6. Maybe. Tennessee couldn't win it. Tennessee could not win it. SMU, Boise State, Arizona State could not win it. You gave them a chance, and they all lost. They all lost. So regardless of what we want to say, until they start winning, and by the way, that's there would only be one G5 or independent that can do it. It's Notre Dame.
Right.
They're the only one that can do it because, look, they have Jesus-led money. They do. Don't act like that they don't. Joe, did you see the Pope's tweet today?
They have private school money.
Notre Dame. See, they have Catholic money. You can't.
They have private school money from a lot of business leaders that went to Notre Dame. That's what it is.
Business leaders, right? Cardinals. That's what it is.
Okay.
Jesus
all right.
Money.
All right. All right.
Y'all are taking collective money from the Pope. Tell me I'm lying.
Honestly, well, he's from Chicago. The new Pope is from Chicago. You can't tell me he didn't root for Notre Dame at one point. You can't tell me he
doesn't root for Notre Dame now.
A Catholic who went to Villanova from Chicago. He definitely